Is everybody well? Good. Thanks to everyone that's contributed to the video so far this morning. It's all going very, very well. So really looking forward to that being finished. It's going to be a real great showpiece, and everyone's been really up for it in terms of getting involved, and I really appreciate that. So thanks. But today, yeah, we're going to talk about the difference between creative and artwork. See what I did? Creative, artwork, the difference between. I know. More about that graphic in a bit. But we are actually live streaming this event today. Look, we're on the internet. Look at that. So by virtue of Mr. Yardley over there, he's going to pass the knowledge on to me. But yeah, with our Lunch and Learns now, providing the people that are presenting are happy to do so, we'll be live streaming them for people who aren't here to get the benefit and the awesome knowledge that Lunch and Learns provide. So that's an exciting development straight away. We even get a little logo in the corner like Sky Sports. Yeah, that's yeah. Okay, so. The difference between creative and artwork. Well, there's always been creative and there's always been artwork, and they've always existed in this kind of uncomfortable space together. Creative's been, oh God, I don't know, is it right, is it wrong, I don't know, and then artwork has been, can we just bloody well get on with it? Okay, but essentially, creative, from a visual perspective anyway, creative people and people that do artwork are very, very similar. There is a huge grey area and an overlap between what they do. And that's why I think it's sometimes difficult for people to work out where work's going to go. So I'm going to try and sort of explain that, explain why that is, and try and make it a bit easier for client services people in the main to be able to understand, to absorb a job or project or group of, or body of work from a client, and then be able to decide where that particular piece of work goes. So creative people, or creative stuff that we do day to day, just to cover off what that is. Number one, conceptualization. So the top line ideas. When we sit in here scratching our heads, doing endless marker visuals, drinking loads of caffeine, digging in the dirt, trying to find the good stuff. Obviously, at that point, it's not artwork. Okay, so it's quite easy to sort of understand what this is. But what this is, it's kind of the catalyst for everything that we do. Sitting in a room together, thrashing ideas out, writing them down, screwing them up, heart aching. It's the absolute start for everything that we do across the board. It's best done in groups, because if you try and do it on your own, you'll drive yourself mad. So you do need a foil, a sounding board, a fellow creative person who you can bounce off. Bigger groups are quite often better, and you can get through problems much faster the more heads you can put on it. But more often in Superdream, we work in pairs. Sometimes to get to the good stuff can take days or weeks or months, but sometimes you can crack it in 5 minutes, and there's no way of measuring that. But when you do get to the good stuff, when you do unearth the gold, that idea, and I think FCA is a great example, that idea of a door with numbers on can then keep the agency rolling and rolling and rolling for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and still keep it rolling. But that means that 95% of this work is crap, and we will throw it away. And that's fine. It's the initial ideas that anybody has, whether they're creative or not, are crap, because it's the first thing that comes out of your head. The important thing is to keep going, and when it becomes really, really difficult and you think there's no more ideas to be had, that's when you generally get to the good stuff. Then after we've done that, and this is where the crossover starts, we get into design and art direction. So this is where we take those ideas and we obsess about them, turn them into beautiful visuals, either in magazines, websites, whatever the end product is. This is when we start getting really, really anal about the tiny things and really polishing things that other people aren't even aware of. It's photography, illustration, film, as we've seen today, animation, typography, layout, composition. It's bringing all those things together, and it's doing it again and again and again and again until it's absolutely perfect. And yeah, it requires you to have an unhealthy obsession about these kind of things, and stress and heartache about stuff that normal people wouldn't even notice, let alone give a shit about. So, but this is what separates okay work from brilliant work, because you can take a perfectly great idea, and if it's just processed, slapdash, not cared about, then you've let that idea down. So this discipline is really, really, really important in order for us to raise the bar of how good our work is. And then there's copywriting, but this isn't about that, so we won't dwell on that right now, but obviously that's a key part of what creative is. Then moving on to the artwork side. Now artwork, as the name suggests, it is an art, but it's the art of efficient delivery, I think. At the very top of the plot, it's about having a process that we follow to the letter. It's about being focused on the goal and not being distracted. It's about fastidiousness, it's about detail. It's about detaching yourself a little bit from the creative part, because we've got a load of production to get through and we've got a deadline to hit. So the person that's in charge of this part of the process needs to detach themselves from the emotion of the work to a degree. Requires consistency. We require the same levels of the same level of excellence all the way through. We need accuracy. We want it right first time or thereabouts, and we want it done quickly, because we've got deadlines to hit. And that means, by the nature of all that 95% of the work that an art worker or a finished artist does has to be 95% useful, probably more than that, because we can't really afford to be getting it wrong at that point. So there is this grey area in the middle, yeah? Because on the side of the art worker, or the finished art, I much prefer the term finished artist. It just sounds a lot more grand and a lot more glorious than art worker, and it's a shame we've lost that term. So I'm going to campaign for you to be renamed a finished artist, Dwayne. Do you like that? Yeah. But by virtue of what they do, art workers and people that are in this area have to be creative. They have to understand the process. They have to have that level of obsession around detail, and they also have to contribute creatively within a set of parameters. If we've designed a brochure, for instance, we may have designed a cover, we may have designed a spread, we may have designed a few spreads, but that brochure might be 125 pages long, and then the art worker needs to take that design and replicate it throughout, accurately, consistently, efficiently, quickly, all the way through. So an art worker does need to be creative, but they've got to be able to work quickly and accurately and not get too involved. Get it done. Process, efficiency, speed, accuracy. Artwork is what they do, but they can contribute creatively. On the other side of the coin, designers and art directors, of course, they're creative. And they're sometimes control freaks who won't let go. They want to see this thing they've created all the way through to the end. But they can sometimes be a bit too vested in the process and not be efficient enough to let it get through to the end quickly and efficiently. And obviously that they can do artwork, but is that where they're best spent? Aren't they better off getting the next job in and creating the great ideas for that task, and then leaving the efficient process to the artwork department? So yeah, there's a bit of a crossover. Agreed? And I understand that. So when does creative become artwork? And there's a grey area, so there's no real hard and fast line. It can vary from project to project. Depends on how much we know the client. With the FCA project as it is, we've done lots and lots of creative work. We know most people can kind of know what an FCA job is going to look like before they've done it now, because we've done lots and lots of groundwork in terms of how that work looks. And it can depend how mature a client's brand is. I think a great example is SIPS Education that we're working on right now. They don't really know where they are visually and brand-wise. So, even the most simplest tasks take a lot of thinking about, because we don't really know what they want or where they're going. But it can depend on any number of factors. So I think you just need to ask yourself a question, really, and that is, how clearly can you visualize the end result yourself? It's a bit of a blunt measurement, but if you can't, if you're looking at a task and say, yes, I can see what it looks like, I can see what it's going to say, I can visualize the end product, then it's probably time to go to artwork. If you can't, if there's an instance where there's too much of a grey area here, there's too many questions that need to be asked before we get to the end product, then it's probably time to go back into creative. And of course, if you are unsure, you must ask. Come and speak to Holly, speak to the creative team, And if you're unsure, we can work it out together, because it is a grey area, as we've said. But paperwork can help. And what I want to show to you today is the new SuperDream Creative Brief. And hopefully this is going to help client services people get to the bottom of these questions much quicker, and enable us as creative people to get on with the job with the knowledge that we need. And this is what it looks like. So I'll walk you through each element of it. But it's essentially one piece of paper. We want every creative brief now to form one piece of A4, double-sided, but one piece of A4. Okay, and all the meat is going to be on this side. All of the really, really important stuff that talks about what we want, who it's for, what emotional strings we're trying to pull, are all on this side of the paper. And then on the back, it's all of the mandatories, all of the further reading, all of the extra stuff that maybe the creative can go and do. So, obviously we've got all our normal day-to-day stuff at the top, as you'd expect. That hasn't changed at all. But then first, who's the client? This is particularly important if we're working with new people, new clients. Give an overview of who they are, what their particular pressure points are. If the client is known to us, obviously we all know what this is, so feel free to delete that part. But particularly when a new client's coming on board, try to sum them up in a sentence, 2 sentences max. Next, what do we need to do? So give an outline of what the output is. And this is where you're going to really kind of work out yourself, I think, whether what we're asking for is creative or artwork. Who's the target audience? Who are we talking to? I mean, this tells us as creative people what type of language we can use, what kind of visuals are acceptable, what tools can we use? Can we use humour? Can we use shock? Is it quite a boring job that we just need to get done? Every brief is an opportunity, obviously. But describing the type of people we're talking to is absolutely critical, and who we need to respond is really important to know. What do they currently think? I mean, it's important to understand what the situation is right now, but also what the situation is in the future. So what do they currently think about, this client, this product, this service that we're going to be marketing? And also, is there anything about the wider marketplace that we can use to help us as we move into creative work? What do we need to tell them? There'll be key messages. I mean, we've had a discussion about that this morning, haven't we now? About key messages and what are the important things we need to say. And what messages people should get from this piece of communication. And then thinking about the aftermath, what do we want them to think and or do after they've seen our communications? Is it purely we want them to feel better about themselves? Do we want them to visit a website? Do we want them to go to an event? Do we want them to, and think about the outcomes that we want from this piece of communication. And then on the back, this is where all the small print goes, if you like. So anything that absolutely must be in the communication. So if there's a logo we have to use, or if there's a set of corporate guidelines that we have to follow, any mechanical data around physical sizes, anything the client doesn't like or dislike. If the client really dislikes purple, then we don't want to present them a purple logo, because I've seen perfectly good logos being derailed by being in the wrong colour and things like that. But also, try to reference here other ways that we as creatives can get close to the client. So it might be a web page, it might be a document, it might be a book, it might be a video to watch, it might be actually a physical person that it would be good to go and speak to. It might be an event to go to, it might be a place to go. What this does, it gets creatives off their arses and out there into the wide world, away from their computers. And I think if you're going to sell a saucepan, you should cook a meal with it, okay? And I think it's as simple as that. If there are ways to interface with the brand or the product, then as creative people, we should be encouraged to go and do that. So why is that better? Well, I think firstly it encourages client services, you guys, to be more of a filter, and to strip away the things that aren't important and can consider that as a thing. I think it gives us the information that we really need to be able to get straight into the meat of the project. It's digestible, it's one piece of paper, and it prompts you to suggest to us further reading than feeling that you've got to put the War and Peace into a brief. You don't need to do that. That should be on us to go out and absorb and learn and immerse ourselves in any given brief. It gets us off our arses and away from our desks. And now we've got flexible working, that's a great thing. It discourages cutting and pasting. I know you don't do that. But I think finally what it does do is, if you can't use this document for what you're asking for, I think you should ask yourself, is it really a creative task? Because all creative projects really should fit into that format, I believe. I think that's it. So that's the difference between creative work and artwork. It's a grey area, basically, and there's no magic formula, because every job is different. But you know, as visual creatives, we're all capable of contributing in an artwork, in a meaningful artwork way. And the artwork department is about process and precision and delivery and accuracy and timeliness. So those are the key factors as far as I'm concerned. So questions from the floor, anyone?
We still use the same men's brief?
For the time being, yes. There will probably be, there'll be a new amends brief, there'll be a new copy brief, there'll be a new artwork brief. But this is 101, I suppose, for the documents. So it'll be on the server for you to use. So yeah, knock yourself out.
If anyone's got any comments from client services, I had a couple back, nothing major, just a word here and there. Feedback, because we can tweet that. You know, Steve's open for discussion on Twitter.
Totally.
The feedback I've had so far is literally a word here and a word there, just to really clarify.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all been well received from those that have seen it. That's Dawn and Lucy, and that can be quite opinionated. So that's good.
Okay. Creative team, Dwayne, is it fair?
Yeah.
You on board? Yeah. Finished artist? Glorious.
So I suppose we've got a good example of that artwork creative balance. We've got the Ferro magazine in, and Dwayne's face has probably dropped already just saying that.
Yeah.
But we know that what that looks like, it's a set design, it's a set format. Creatively, it uses imagery which we can source, which Dwayne can probably source image-wise because he's seen them before.
Absolutely right.
Need to be creative, would it?
Yeah, it's also knowledge of, knowledge is important when it comes to Metsec. Their layouts, the way that work looks is the creative work is done in the main. Dwayne knows that client inside out. I mean, I just have to think how many pages you've actually artworked in design for that client since you've been there, but it's a lot. So Dwayne will motor through that work much faster than someone like Tristan or Preed, who are perfectly capable of doing it, but they're just control freaks and they'll stress. Yeah, he will. So yeah, anything else? Was that useful? Yeah?
Yeah, really good.
Okay, great. Did it work? Bye.